Okay, today we'll be talking about mandatory vaccines for schools, and indirectly we will be discussing the question of should mandatory vaccines be placed above certain freedoms for the sake of public health? This anti-vax mom here does not think so. Firstly, we'll be discussing schools. If there's any place where kids are going to get sick, it's where they are together in large groups of other kids. This is why the idea of herd immunity is so important. And what herd immunity states simply is that the more people in a given population that are vaccinated will mean that there's less of a threat of whatever illness is at hand. So if we look at the picture on the right, we can see that at the top there is almost nobody vaccinated. And that turns into everybody becoming vaccinated, as represented by the red people. Whereas in the bottom of the photo, there are almost everybody is vaccinated, which means that almost everybody is safe. And this comes into play with outbreaks. Now, when heavy exemption usage is taking place, this can have very bad effects, as in we go from being very immune, having high herd immunity, to having lower or very low herd immunity. And when we are talking about illnesses that are much more serious, this can involve being hospitalized for kids, or in some cases, like with measles, which we will be discussing about a lot, since that has made a very large comeback, can result even in death. With schools being worried about their students being vaccinated to start classes, they don't target the students for that. What they want to target is the parents, because at the end of the day, the parents are the ones that will make the decision as to whether or not the kid should be vaccinated. Well, there has been a large growing movement of anti-vaccination parents. And the basics of what they believe is that vaccines are harmful or they should not be mandatory at all. And this can come from several different reasons. For the harmful aspect of it, they believe it can cause brain damage. Autism or learning disabilities are just a few of the risks that can come along with a vaccination. Some parents in the anti-vaccination movement also believe that health officials are being dishonest with them and not disclosing the full dangers that come with getting a vaccine. And in more mild cases, it could also just be religious or personal beliefs where a parent of a child wants to live a certain way according to their religion, and vaccines would go against that. And we can see an example of a protest that happened because of this in the top picture here. We can see we have one sign, segregation is discrimination. Not sure how that applies. We can also see on the other sign here, living God's way. And the kid that's there with that is this overzealous little boy who looks like he wouldn't rather be doing any other thing than being at a school protesting. And where there is one opinion, there also is an opposite of that. And that brings us to pro-vaccination parents. Basically, this is just the exact opposite of anti-vaccination parents. These parents believe that vaccines are good. They do not really pose any serious threat to their child, and that it could even be, the right thing to do. So these parents often think that, if preventing an illness is possible, let's prevent it. Let's not wait around and see what happens. This also is much more trustworthy of health officials and with their doctors. And a big part of believing that it's the right thing to do is that these parents are wanting to aid in herd immunity. They want more kids to be vaccinated so then more kids are protected. It's the mindset of it's not just my kid, it's other kids as well. But the big thing that separates the two is that one believes they are good and they are healthy, and one believes that they are not good and they are very possibly unhealthy. With the growing number of anti-vaccination parents also comes a growing number of exemptions for these vaccines. And normally it is left up to the state's government or local governments to decide how to go about handling this and what rules should be set in place. to get vaccinations for students. However, if these local governments do not handle the situations well enough, or if the outbreaks are just growing in numbers uncontrollably, then the federal government will step in. And we have already seen cases where the federal government and other health officials, have been willing to step in and change the laws. So we might have the federal government with an intervention to come in, but most people, they question the legality of it. Many parents, especially how you will see from the anti-vaccination parents, claim it is not legal for the federal government to force local governments to make laws on this, and that it can go against their amendments. It can also go against just personal freedoms, such as the freedom to religion. When the federal government steps in to take over, a lot of what they're talking about is that they're just going to get rid of exemptions completely, and they will mandate everybody must get these, and that's the end of that. And that's where you would get these cases of, if somebody wants an exemption because of their religion and you deny them that, part of that is really just denying the freedom of religion. So there is no easy solution for the federal government, but for the most part, states have been keeping it under control. Although there have been outbreaks, as we can see by this graph on the right here. May 14th of 2019, which was the last time it was checked according to this graph, we can see that we have nearly the same amount of cases of when we maxed out back in 94. And measles was officially eliminated in 2000 with an all-time low of 37. So we can see that there has been, some cause for concern. Maybe not enough at the moment for the federal government to step in, but there has been cause for concern. And many do believe that this is linked to the anti-vaccination parents. So overall, just taking a look back, we have schools who want herd immunity. They want all their kids to be safe when they go to school. They don't want anybody worrying about what illness the kid can get. And we have parents that have really split into two groups, pro-vaccination and anti-vaccination, and each have their own respectable reasons as to why they believe in that system. And then we possibly have the federal government coming in to make their own decisions based on what's going to happen in the future. And the big problem is that will the government step in and will they make these changes of no exemptions whatsoever? And answering that is the same as answering the question I proposed at the beginning of this presentation is, should mandatory vaccines be placed above certain freedoms for the sake of public health?